Welcome edition of Chicago Bears Therapy. I'm Jeff Burkus. I'm joined by Lester Wilfong. Lester, how you doing, man?
Man, such a depressing start to the season. I mean, it's not so bad they're 0-2. It's just how they're 0-2. I think it's really, really bad. I mean, if they looked okay and they were losing some close games, I think we'd be fine with it as fans because we knew this wasn't going to be a title year. But it looked awful, disjointed, offensively, defensively. There's so many problems with the team. Just terrible. It sucks being a Bears fan right now.
I want to push back on that a little bit.
Okay,
0-2 sucks.
it does
Either
suck.
way, all right? And a lot of teams make the playoffs after going 0-2. So a little bit. And I'm not saying that this team was for sure a playoff team. I know I certainly went out there and said, yeah, I think that this team's a playoff team, but I thought it was because it was wide open NFC, and you could see with the progression and with the investments that okay, maybe this is a playoff team. And I get excited. For the year. I get a little optimistic. I think we need to remove the idea of the anchor from the previous season of wins.
That's fair.
Like, oh, they were a 3-win team. Yes, they won 3 games. Also, they were trying to be bad last year, and they were. And a lot of those one-score games went the wrong way. It was basically the anti-Vikings year last year, right? Vikings won all those games. A lot of fans are very happy to take away, put asterisk next to the Vikings 13 wins. Like, they had a really nice year, but it was pretty lucky, right?
Yeah.
Bears were pretty unlucky to only win 3. They probably should have won something like 5. But my point is, they were trying to win this year. They added some free agents, whether or not you like them or not. They added them, and this league pushes you to try to be 500. Right? This is a league that would love it if every team was in it until late in the year, because that keeps fan bases engaged and all that kind of stuff. So I don't like the idea of keeping the anchor of like 3 wins as they were a 3-win team last year. So, if they win 5 or 6, that's an improvement. Not really. It really isn't. Statistically speaking, it isn't, because there's only 16 games. This isn't baseball, right? Like, you're not playing 162 games where you can say like, oh, they went from, winning 60 games to 80 games. It's not, you don't have enough games to really prove that. So to me, anything less than 7 wins is a bad year.
Yeah. You had him. What was your prediction? You had him at 9.
I went 9 wins and making the 7 seed.
I had him at 9 as well. I originally was 10 before preseason, and then after watching preseason, seeing how some of the issues, some of the O-line problems they had, I brought it down to 9, which is still possible. But man, the way it looks so far, it's going to be
really turn things around.
Turn around. Yeah. Is that your cat going
Can you hear
down
it?
Here?
All right,
I hear it a little bit.
Hold on, I'm going to take the cat out. Come on, bud.
Yeah, Jeff has a cat that always bothers him. I usually have one of my dogs jumping in here, so it's all good. There he is. He's back.
The cat is loud. He's a big orange cat, and I thought, he's sleeping. I'm gonna leave him. I'm gonna let him sleep there. And we launched the show, and he immediately jumped down from the bench that he sleeps on and came over and started meowing. So he's just fired up. He's got Luke Getzey opinions. He's got things, So anyway, you wanna do a podcast?
Let's get it going.
All right, let's do that. Welcome to Bear and Balance. I'm Jeff Burkus, a writer for Windy City Gridiron, and I'm joined by the editor of that fine website, Lester A. Wiltfong Jr. Lester, the Bears drop another one ugly. They dropped to 0-2. Other than that, how are you doing today?
Doing good. It's all things considered. It's just it's a tough time to be a Bears fan. It's I picked them. I thought they had a chance to beat the Buccaneers, who even though they beat the Vikings in Minnesota week 1. Come on, it's the Bucs. It's Baker Mayfield, but Baker Mayfield shredded the Bears. I mean, he looks like he looks like the answer at quarterback for the Bucs, which is I guess that's what the Bears are doing now. They're making quarterbacks look great.
It's one of those things where early in the week I picked all the games for Tally site. A bunch of us at the site do this betting thing. We pick the spread, we pick the money line, we pick the over under. So I picked all the games, and at first I picked against the Bears because I thought, God, they look so terrible. And then as the week got closer, and then I wrote the column for the weekend, and I focused on the Bears, and I was like, actually, I'm starting to talk myself into this. I think they're going to bounce back, and I had this whole game script in my head, and that's how I wrote the article. So, I came around, and then they failed me. So that was rough.
Spoiler alert: we are not going to pick the Bears week 3.
No,
No,
I
okay.
don't even know what the line is, but I'm not sure that I'm even going to take them.
It
Uh,
opened at 13. I think it's come down to 12 and a half.
okay, that's a big line. So we'll see what that happens when we get there. But let's talk about this Buccaneers game. We always start in the trenches with our trench tribute. And, there were a couple guys that I think were worthy of mention in this as opposed to last week, where it was a little harder to find. But who did you identify for your trench tribute this week?
I got to go with the big nose tackle, Andrew Billings. He's just he's the guy that Bears fans thought he was when he was signed. He's a stout run defender, but this week he had some good pressure numbers. I think he was pushing the pocket pretty good there. Um, they didn't get to Mayfield once. No sacks. I think they had one quarterback hit. He slipped out of I think at least 2 sacks with Yannick Ngakoue had him a couple times. He kind of slipped out of, but Billings was pushing the pocket. He only had 2 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, but you can see how he could be a piece. You got to find a 3 tech, obviously, maybe another edge rusher, but maybe that's Dexter, maybe it's Pickens. I thought Dexter had a pretty nice game too. I went back kind of watched what he did, and so there are a couple pieces there. It's just not coming together. But for me, it's Billings this week. How about you?
So I took the opportunity after work today, before this show started, to focus in on Jatiri Carter because on the first run through, I thought I think he's doing some good things, and it's his first start. It's probably a good opportunity to go back and just watch him. And I'd be interested if you end up going back and doing this too, to compare our numbers. But overall, I would say that he looked pretty good. I graded him out. I tried to use kind of your scale, but we'll see how I did here. But I split it up into run and pass plays. On pass plays, I had him down for 32 reps that looked good to me, 2 reps that looked bad to me. I marked him down for there, and then I had 1 rep that I just couldn't really give him a good or a bad. It was just it was one of those where it was sort of a play action where he pulls to the left, and it looks like he's supposed to basically take out who's there, and then he misses him, but that guy doesn't really impact the play.
Yeah,
And so I'm like, like it wasn't very good, but it has like no bearing on the play because Fields is rolling out. And so I just put it as like a neutral. And then the 2 pass plays that I thought weren't very good. He gets beat by 96 pretty fast. And it's this 1st and 10 where Fields flushes out to the left, and then he kind of pitches the ball out of bounds.
yeah,
That initial pressure was Carter. And then he had another rep a little later against Vita Vea, who walked him backwards. One of the best players in the game. So whatever. And then in the run game, I had him down for 10 reps that I thought looked good. 1 rep I didn't really know how to grade, and then 3 that I didn't really like. So one of them was against Vita Vea, which
again,
again, that's a
that
really good
happens.
football player. And then there's one that was like an outside run, where I think it would be like a pin pull action, maybe with the tackle, where he's supposed to come out around the tackle, and he just doesn't get out. And I don't know if that was because Wright got pushed back a little bit, knocked him off his mark. But looked like he got a little confused of should he try to go inside of Wright or should he kind of keep trying to go around him. He just sort of washed himself out of the play, and that play went nowhere. And then just overall, I don't know that he's all of that much of an athlete. Like I went back, look at his relative athletic score, kind of average.
Yeah.
And I think you can kind of see that he doesn't necessarily move very well. So as a puller, I'm not sure that I love it. But he was constantly looking for work, and
Yes.
I think that that's good. Even like really fast, like he's he he'd punch Vita Vea here, and then he'd look back. If that defensive end was trying to cut inside, he'd move over and he'd try to get a block on the defensive end. So like really like active eyes and trying to look for work. He's not really just loafing around. Like he was definitely taking that opportunity of his first start. So overall, I thought that was a pretty good first effort for a guy that was a very late round draft pick making his first start, and certainly worthy of talking about here in the Trench Tribute.
Yeah, I thought he had a nice game. I mean, that's the one thing hard when you go back and grade these players is, we don't know the plays. We don't know the play call. We don't know their assignments each play. What could be something that we were taught back in the day as an assignment football, maybe the Bears coach it differently. I mean, there's several ways you can do the same thing. It's just all about what are his rules on each play. So, yeah, I mean, going back and watching it, I didn't focus in on him too intently. But what I saw from him, I liked that. That's a good pick for Trent Tribute this week.
Yeah. So we'll see if he has any more opportunities to get some playing time. We're not sure what the Nate Davis situation is. If he's going to come back, we learn, at some point a couple of days ago, I think that he wasn't going to travel with the team. A lot came out about that. I think maybe we just kind of talked about that here. A
Yeah,
lot came out about it. The Bears are not very good about giving anybody anything. It's a very cloistered environment. It is what it is. Not saying that
yeah,
we deserve any of that information or anything like that. The Bears could do themselves some favors by having a better relationship with media, even if that's off the record. But I digress. We found out that Nate Davis was dealing with an ailing family member who passed away. So that's what was why he was not able to travel with the team, and he's taking care of his personal matters. Obviously you should be doing that. That is more important than football. And so a little bit in terms of people overreacting, not understanding what's going on in this young man's life. A lot of shots being taken because he signed a nice big contract. I think it's just a good reminder to people like you don't know what's going on in someone's
yeah,
life. So it's not really worth having the hot take and going on out there. We criticize this football a little bit, right? We criticize some of the stuff that why isn't this guy practicing? We don't really have complete information, but we certainly weren't going after the guy, right?
yeah.
And now you kind of learn this guy was going through some stuff. Maybe we just set this set this aside for a little bit, let him get back into football mindset, let him get back into football shape before we get back to judging Nate Davis, the football player.
Like you said, the Bears don't do themselves any favors. I mean, ultimately, it's up to Nate Davis. If he don't want the information public, somehow it leaked anyway. I mean, it happened. The media had, I think, Biggs had it from Trib. I think Courtney had it from ESPN. So it got out there eventually anyway. But there are ways the Bears could spin this where they're protecting the player. They're not giving out any information, but just making it very clear, what? Nate Davis is dealing with the personal matter. We're not going to get into it, at this time. Just understand that if he could be here, he'd be here, but he has, more important things besides football. I mean, there's something simple like that they can do. And like you said, also stuff off the record, let some of the beat guys know, what's happening. So at least they can kind of frame the narrative. Because, there's some people that are like upset because he's signed a huge contract. They expect him to be out there. So it happens. It is what it is. It's happening with the D coordinator Alan Williams. Now he's got some stuff away from the team for personal reasons. No one knows what's going on there. Again, the Bears haven't really said what's happening. We just hope it's nothing too serious, and he'll be back soon to get back to his job.
I just a quick history note. I've done a fair amount of reading about George Hallis, and George Hallis.
You are freezing, my friend. I don't know if it's on my end
He
or
would
your
let a
end.
lot of well, it's my end, but basically
Okay.
George Hallis would had a very cozy relationship with media, and he would basically play a little bit favorites. Like the guys that would give him good coverage, he would give more information to. That is not how things are done maybe today, but it's certainly not how the Bears are doing things at all, because I don't really see many, if anybody, getting that kind of treatment. But let's move on to the Twitter, the X, the whatever portion of the program where we talk about the sweet tweets of the week. And I gotta tell you, not so sweet.
No.
Not so sweet this week. So why don't we start off with yours?
Sure. Mine is from at Tommy K underscore NFL draft. These days he's going by the Khalil Herbert Stan account. But he tweeted out rookie Bears cornerback Tyreek Stevenson was targeted 8 times, gave up 6 catches for 143 yards and a touchdown. Zion McCollum, who was filling in for the Bucks, best cornerback, was only targeted 4 times. This is a clear indication of which offense actually had a plan. Luke Getsy, my friend, what is happening? I mean, yes, Justin Fields probably should have targeted the young Zion McCollum a little more, who was filling in for Carlton Davis, who was injured for the Bucks. But we've talked about how teams are going to attack Stevenson because he's a rookie corner. You're not going to go after Jalen Johnson. They're going to go after the other guy. There was just no plan. I mean, it was discombobulated from the start. We've seen it now 2 weeks in a row. What exactly is the plan here from Luke Getsy? When you see other offenses around the NFL operate, you understand, oh yeah, this is what they're trying to do. This is their bread and butter. This is their identity. 2 games into the season, we thought we were going to see an identity from similar to last year. The stuff that worked, let's build off that. We're not seeing any of that. I don't know what Luke Getsy is as a play caller. I don't know what his scheme is. I don't know what he wants to be. So it's what exactly do you do here? Exactly. So who knows?
Yeah, and I think I'll just bring up mine because it's also a Luke Getsy tweet. So this is number one Bears fan, happens to be related to me, but at Burkus Julie would be my mother. Says, okay, this very frustrated fan really is questioning why we chose a quarterback coach from the Packers to coach our quarterback. He apparently doesn't have a clue what Justin does well. I've come to the conclusion the Bears don't know how to have a good quarterback. And there's a lot of talk about that. A lot of talk about just the Bears' history with quarterbacks, how bad that's been. I saw a tweet that said, the entire history of the Bears there's never been a quarterback drafted and developed. And I'm like, you don't actually need to do the hyperbole here.
Yeah.
Sid Luckman was drafted, developed, and was a Hall of Fame quarterback. Johnny Lujack was drafted, somewhat developed before he retired early, who was a first-team All-Pro quarterback. Just say 70 years. It's a gigantic amount of, or just say Super Bowl era, right? But there's some, well, it never has happened. Well, it hasn't happened in your lifetime, or it hasn't, happened in the relevant, Super Bowl era. Okay, that's enough. We don't need to just forget about the first 30, 40 years of professional football. But the point stands that the Bears just don't do this very well. They just do not have a good approach, and then they don't execute the plan. A lot of this is with alignment of the general manager, head coach, and quarterback, right? Where these guys are not picked all at the same time. And I think right now what we're seeing and what we're dealing with is you have a defensive head coach with no track record that was hired in after you drafted Justin Fields, and he brought in a guy who's never called plays before. These guys had zero track record, and you had a very young quarterback. And so what was that? Why doesn't the Packers thing is what it is, but why was that the approach that you took with a young quarterback that needed to be coached in the right direction, and you took huge swings with unknown coaches at the head coach level and at the offensive coordinator level?
This was the big talk before they made the hire for Coach Eberflus was, okay, if you believe in Justin Fields as a franchise, if whoever comes in, you want to have someone that supports that. This is why a lot of fans were on Brian Dable. Pretty much all the offensive type guys. As Bears fans, we assume, okay, they're going to bring in one of those guys because you want to have a guy that comes in that can learn and grow with your franchise quarterback. Maybe Ryan Poles at the time wasn't sold on Justin Fields, which I don't know, seems kind of odd, but hey, it is what it is. Maybe that's what happened, and that's why he's went his own direction, and Coach Flutes and him were kind of like a pair. Who knows? Just at this point, like you said, things don't line up. So here we are again. If let's say something happens where it turns out the whole Getsy, the whole Fields, the whole thing just blows up and something happens, and now you're restarting again, is will Poles be allowed to bring in the new coach in? Will there be a new rebuild started with a new quarterback? And if that's the case, I don't want this regime anywhere near that. I mean, if it goes south this year, and there's just a terrible, terrible, 2-3 win season again. If you clean house, clean house. Let Kevin Warren bring in his own GM, his own head coach. Let them figure out the quarterback situation. But if you're going to blow it up completely.
Two things. One, do you think that Luke Getsy gets fired in season, and where do you think that watch starts? That's my first question. I'll let you answer that now.
It's tough with the Chiefs coming up because my guess is they're going to get destroyed. So you're making a determination based on that game. Then after that, you got Denver, so maybe after the Denver game, we saw Getsy's offense struggle last year early, and then they figured it out about, was it week 5 with the Washington Commanders game where things started clicking. They didn't get any points that game, but they put up like 400 some yards. They went on a nice 6-game stretch. You're like, okay, Luke Getsy's kind of showing an identity, what he wants to be as a play caller. You kind of see something happen, but there's no talent. I'm guessing about the same. I mean, when you get like week 5, week 6, if it hasn't changed, I think he might be the scapegoat.
Second thing is that the McCaskey, Hallis, that line, they inherited this team. Okay. They're not independently wealthy billionaires that bought a team that have other money. So they don't necessarily have the cash flow that a lot of other teams do. Not every team is bought by some other billionaire that has only owned it for a few years, right? Or an ownership group or whatever. There's others that are family run. But this team doesn't have the resources that you might expect. You just assume that these guys have billions of dollars on hand. That is not true for the Chicago Bears ownership group. And so we saw George McCaskey keep Ryan Poles and Matt Nagy when it was very clear that he needed a clean house.
Yeah.
Ryan Pace. Sorry.
Pace Nagy.
First time I've done that, but I did it the reverse. He kept them an extra year, and it was very clear that needed to be cut right then.
Yeah.
But he kept them, I think, in large part because he didn't want to pay out the contracts. And you're in a situation where you're only 2 years in to these contracts now. And the only time, as pointed out by our friend Bill Zimmerman, the only time that's happened in any kind of recent history where the Bears have fired a coach with multiple years left on their original contract was Mark Trestman, who completely lost the locker room, and they had absolutely no choice but to separate ties at that point. So, do you think that the money would hold them back from making a move?
History tells you it would. Yeah. I mean, you would hate to see it happen. I mean, it's a results-based business. Obviously, owning an NFL team, you would hope that it wouldn't. But man, just based on what George McCaskey and the whole regime that they've always done, yeah, I think this is going to happen. And I mean, if bottom really falls out, if it's like a 2-3 win team, I mean, I think their hand will be forced. But if they sneak their way to like 5 wins, they'll talk themselves and they'll talk the fans into, Poles and Flus are the right guy. It was, let's change the coordinators. Let's get a new quarterback and we'll reset that again. So I think one thing this team does, whatever happens, they got to get the trenches taken care of. They got to get that figured out. It doesn't matter who they bring in. I'm not saying it's all on the trenches because some of the issues we've seen is on the quarterback not making the right reads, but let's get the trenches built up first, and then let's try and build the skill guys around that. That's what winning football is all about.
Well, let's move on to the stat of the week. Caught up in a numbers game. Both of ours are not good. They're not fun, but we'll let you start.
My number this week is 3, and that is the 3 consecutive screen passes there towards the end of the game that Luke Getsy called, and of course the third one was the pick 6 by Shaq Barrett. I went back and because I heard him talking about 3 screens, so I heard it talk about on a lot of social media. Kind of went back and watched it, and that first one, I guess maybe they weren't maybe that wasn't the primary thing, but it sure looked like Phil Herbert was kind of leaking inside for the same type of screen here. Then the second one, it works. The first one was a penalty on the defense. The second one was a penalty on the offense. Then the third one was the pick six. So it's like, come on, dude. I mean, let's say it was just two in a row. Why are you running two in a row, let alone three? Like, what are you doing? That is just a terrible decision. It's almost like he just said, the hell with it. Do it again. It's like, what are you doing at that point? Have you given up as a play caller? I mean, do you have no pride in what you're doing? Like why would that be what you decide to do? I just didn't understand it.
I mean, was he playing Madden? Right? Like where he's like, yeah, I'm just gonna hit the same play again. Like even the Madden, artificial intelligence defense will adapt to you when you do that, right? So none of it makes sense. Our friend Jonathan Wood said this in and of itself is a fireable offense to Luke Getzey, and I
Yeah,
kind of agree. Like, what was the score at the time? You're down 3. Like
you're down
the
three.
game is still in reach, and you do
2 minutes
something
and
like
like
that.
12 seconds left. I mean, there was plenty of time.
Yeah,
Uh,
there was I had to watch this at a bar, a Bears themed bar, by the way.
nice.
And the guy next to me at some point, he goes, all I want is Justin Fields with the ball in his hands late in the game with an opportunity to win this. And then that happened. And I just looked at the guy. I'm like, well, I mean, you got what you wanted. You got the opportunity. I don't know, man. I don't know what the heck was happening there. My number is 12.
I know
That
what this
is
is.
consecutive losses by the Chicago Bears. That is a franchise record. They've had the franchise record going for a while. I think previously it was only like 8 or something like that.
Yeah.
And so this is bad when you're extending your own franchise record for losses. That ties for the 34th longest streak in NFL history. They're almost certainly going to lose next week. Again, you're down. You're a 13-point underdog. That's implied odds. Like you're going to lose that game like 97% of the time.
Yeah.
Uh, a 13 game losing streak ties you for 25th longest. Like you move
Oh,
up, you start to move up here pretty quick. The longest streak is held by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It's 26 games. The second longest streak, I believe, is 20 games, and so that's by the Jags from 2020 to 2021. So part of this, I mean, there's some winnable games here. I don't know that the Bears are going to get up to 20 losses in a row, but if they keep playing like they did,
jeez.
everything's on the table.
Yeah.
I, what what I was thinking about asking was the Jags finished back-to-back years with the number 1 pick. And that, I mean, that is bottoming out, but the Jags look like they're legitimate team this year, right? They've got Trevor Lawrence, they've got a lot of young players, they've got a good coach. So they're coming out of it finally, right? Whereas I'm sure that their fans thought after that one terrible year where they got the number 1 pick that everything's going to be okay. They're going to move up. And I'm kind of wondering, as Bear fans, if we thought that the bottom was hit and we're coming out of it, but really we're just now scraping the bottom.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. Let's look at the Jags real quick. What they did, they got rid of Urban Meyer. That they realized that was a mistake. And what do? They have Trevor Lawrence in at quarterback. What do? Let's go get Doug Peterson.
They
Let's
hire
go
an
get
offensive guy.
a proven offensive guy. And then you know what? Let's make a trade for for Calvin Ridley. And then have him come in. I know it's a year away, but let's get another guy for our guy and let's build it up. And yeah, they lost against the Chiefs this last weekend, but that team's on the upswing. They're doing things the right way, and it's interesting when you put the right pieces around a young quarterback how he can thrive, and compared to what the Bears are doing with Justin Fields.
Yep, fun numbers this week. More
This
fun
show is
numbers.
not very balanced this week. Damn it.
What do you want from us?
Yeah.
Let's do the Fields report.
Okay.
So 16 of 29 for 211 yards. So he does cross the 200-yard mark again. Uh,
Yay.
he had one touchdown, 2 interceptions. Bad ball. Bad ball on the first interception. Second one was that pick six that we talked about on the screen. Took 6 sacks, and you've got some work this week, my friend, on Sack Watch. In my initial watch through, I have a hard time pinning many of those on the offensive line. Maybe there's some sort of coverage sack issue. It just looks like he's just kind of sitting back there and getting a little, deer in the headlights look at some point, which is weird because last year he would just make those a 30-yard gain. So I don't know what's happening. Here's one though: 4 carries for 3 yards and a touchdown. Justin Fields, the best, one of the best running options in the league, particularly at the quarterback position, has 4 carries for 3 yards, and only one of those was a designed run.
Have they coached it out of him? Is what I want to know. I mean,
Yeah.
it's horrible. Like when the game ended, I saw 3 yards. I right away went to the Pro Football Reference and I looked up, what are his fewest rushing yards in his career, and it's three. He tied his low mark, and those 3 rushing yards he had previously that came in his first game of his career against the Rams when he was only used a couple plays to kind of as a changeup. Where Matt Nagy wanted to get him out there, so I think he had 3 yards rushing. He had one touchdown that game on the goal line. But that was it. And you mentioned it. Some of those sacks he took were his fault. He kind of stood there too long. And why isn't he taking off? One of the reasons why it's easier to take off when you have more sprint outs, when you have more rollouts, you have more bootlegs. When you're in the pocket, and the pocket collapses around you because you are waiting too long. You're going to take some sacks, and he clearly took some of those on his own. I haven't broke it down yet. I started watching the All 22 today. Just brutal, like some of the stuff that came on Twitter today. A lot of the former quarterbacks, a lot of the guys that do these X's and O's breakdowns. JT O'Sullivan, Tim Jenkins, Dan Orlovsky. A lot of these guys they're on Twitter today and on social media talking about how, yes, it's Justin Fields, but they also had a lot of blame on the scheme, the play calling, the route concepts. Two guys next to each other. Like, what is this? Why is this still happening? We saw it with Nagy every now and again, and here we are with Getsy. Like, what's happening? I mean, if it happens once, you're like, well, maybe it's the player screwing up. Maybe he went the wrong way when he should have went out. He went in, but it's happening too much. So it's like, this is what Getsy's coaching him up to do. I don't understand it. It's he's got to get better. I mean, at some point, and like the picture I chose today for my the stats article. When I saw that picture, it just made me sad. It's him and Baker Mayfield. If you haven't seen it yet, go to Windy City Gridiron. He has this look in his eye. Justin Fields does, and I'm not trying to body language, what is happening here, but he just got this look in his eye, like, what the F is going on? He just looks defeated. I just felt when I saw the picture, it made me sad. I'm like, I got to use this picture today because this guy, something has to change, and I don't think they're going to fire Getsy, but they got to mix it up, get him on the move, let him get out there, make the game easier for him by letting him be an athlete.
Yeah, it's his greatest strength right now. You got to lean into that. You got to make that a percentage of what he does. Can't be everything he does, right? But it certainly needs to be a portion of it to get him into the game and make him feel comfortable. Let him make plays, gain that confidence, right? And it also make those defenders respect it. That
Yes.
all those defenders fear him, and so you voluntarily taking that part away from his game that they fear is just giving them an easy victory. The best construction I could say here too is that the Bucks have a lot of experience on the defensive line. They have they're disciplined rushers, right? There's not a lot of freelancing, so maybe some of that is just really disciplined rushing and collapsing that pocket in as a unit rather than just like one guy winning all the time. There's a little bit of that too, but like there was I think some good just like disciplined rushing where it just kind of collapsed in on him and he didn't really have anywhere to go, and that can happen with a good defensive line unit. So that's best construction, and I don't want to like excuse anything for anybody because there were plenty of times where he needed to just pull the trigger and he didn't, and that happened last week too. But again, did they try to coach the Justin Fields out of Justin Fields? That's maybe an issue here, right? Like if you coach the thing that makes him special out of him, as opposed to highlighting it and putting him in a situation where he can take advantage of that, score you points, get you chunk gains, all that kind of stuff, and then play off of that to do the other things that you want to do to move your offense. I'm not sure I like your plan, and I'm not sure that you're going to be employed much longer by the Chicago Bears if you continue with that plan.
Justin Fields was voted by the players a top 100 player in the NFL. It wasn't because of his passing skills. Let's be honest. He didn't have a very good year last year passing the ball. He was efficient, but it wasn't, eye-popping numbers. He was voted because defenses fear him because they know what he can do. Anytime he drops back, anytime he has a designed run, he can go all the way. And we saw it last year. He set the record for the longest, the most 50-yard touchdown runs, I guess, of our quarterback. He had 1,000 yards rushing. The league saw that. The league is afraid of that. And then here we have the Bears saying, well, let's worry about the check down now. Let's get out of here with that crap.
Okay. Let's take a quick break. On the other side of this, we'll talk about everybody's favorite segment, the Three Bears. Stick with us. All right, Lester, Three Bears, hot bowl of porridge, cold bowl of porridge, and just right. Let's kick it off with the hot bowl of porridge. Who you got?
So again, the spirit of this is a guy that is performing better than I thought he would. And I'm going to go with rookie right tackle Darnell Wright. I expect him to struggle this year, and he has struggled a little bit. But from week 1 to week 2, he got better. You just see it in his pass sets. You see it in his aggression. I thought he'd be struggling a little more than he has been. So that right away, I'm surprised there. Even last week as against the Packers, he had a pretty nice game, and he's growing. I mean, he looks like he's going to be the guy there at right tackle for a long time. And there's some issues on the left side, a lot of penalties happening over there for Braxton Jones, but the right side, Darnell Wright, he gets the hot bowl this week for me.
I like it. I think that he's certainly looked like he has that pedigree. Looks pretty good in pass pro overall, right? And again, he's learning, right? There's some pretty good rushers that he's been going against that have taught him a thing or two. But I think you have confidence that by the middle of the year, hopefully you're going to see him really step into that, understand the professional week to week, pick up some tricks along the way. Again, you hope Nate Davis comes back. We've seen film on Nate Davis that he's a good football player. You hope that right side of the line solidifies. You hope Tevin Jenkins comes back and can get that left guard spot nailed down, move Cody Whitehair back to center, right? Like you kind of hope that original plan comes back in and you kind of see everything really settled down, here in the next few weeks. And he's a big part of that, right? Like they signed a tight end, Mercedes Lewis, to be a caddy for him. So that he can, you don't put him out on an island very often. Mercedes Lewis hasn't had very many reps. They must feel a little more comfortable putting him out there on the island a little bit more frequently. So, maybe they should have a few more reps, but I think overall, like that's a pretty good sign that they trust him.
Yeah. How about you?
For me, I understand the spirit is better than what you think necessarily, but sometimes you just got to give the guy that performs the hot bowl of porridge, and that's DJ Moore. On a day where Justin Fields only has 211 yards, half of them go to DJ Moore. He's only has one target that he hasn't caught in 2 games. Hey, this guy's really good at football. Good things happen when you get him the ball, and this confirms that this offense needs to run through DJ Moore. He's
for sure.
Not sure that Bears fans fully realize just how good of a football player he is. Why would you watch a lot of Panthers games? And if you did, they've had a quarterback carousel the last few years. They've been kind of all over the place, but he's still performed at a pretty high level, even with all those quarterbacks. This is a guy that he could have doubled those targets, and he probably would have kept up with about the same level of efficiency. I mean, he could have put up 175 yards if they would have made him the primary piece of this offense yesterday. Yeah. That's not a crazy thought. There's receivers that are doing that, and he's as good as those guys, right? Like, I'm not saying he's Justin Jefferson, because Justin Jefferson right now is sort of in a league of his own, right? Jamar Chase isn't doing anything this year. Jamar Chase is a really good football player, but DJ Moore deserves to be mentioned in that next category. Tyreek Hill probably at one above. After that, though, I don't care. Like, you can start talking about DJ Moore, and he deserves to be in there. So for me, confirmation that he's everything I thought he would be, and he deserves this hot bowl of porridge.
Well, we talked about it last week. Luke Getzey had an offense in Green Bay where he saw an offense that ran through a top receiver in Devontae Adams. I'm not saying Moore is that guy because Adams is when he was younger he was really damn good, but you got to run it through DJ Moore. I mean, you got to scheme him up. We saw it happen. I mean, 7 targets, 6 catches, 104 yards. I want to see more. 7 targets, caught 6 of them. Let's target him 12 times a game. See what happens.
The Rams targeted Puka Nakua like 15 times.
Yeah.
You don't. There's not a limit. They don't penalize you if you target a guy too much. Like, that's not a thing. Just keep throwing the ball. It's fine.
Yeah.
Make them stop it before we got to save that. We can't target him too. No, just keep throwing him the ball. He's a good football player.
Yeah.
All right, let's flip it around. Cold bowl porridge. What do you got?
This easily could have went to Luke Getzey. I mean, I think it could have went to Justin Fields. But I'm going to go with the Bears pass defense. I kind of mentioned earlier they gave up over 300 yards passing to Baker Mayfield, and a big part of that was the reserve safeties. The Bears lost both Eddie Jackson to a foot injury. He was out most of the game. They lost Jaquan Brisker to dehydration. He missed about a half of football. So we got to see Elijah Hicks and Quindell Johnson.
Did not know that was a human person until yesterday.
That is the Bears. They signed him as on the waivers, and he came in there. Now he's your 4th safety, so you're forced to play Hicks and Johnson. Look, it's not entirely their fault because this is just who they are. I mean, Johnson's an undrafted free agent. Hicks was a 7th round pick last year. They're just not very good. Which brings me to Ryan Poles. Why did you feel your safety room was good enough with just, basically 2 guys that you trust and a couple guys that are just bad? You tell me Ryan Poles couldn't have found a veteran out there that has experienced, because, a lot of those guys are kind of still looking for work. I'm not saying that necessarily DeAndre Houston Carson's a guy because maybe he's cooked at this point in his career because he had a shot with the Ravens and they cut him. But you could have found a guy. You could have found a veteran that comes in, at least gives you some peace of mind knowing, okay, if Jackson goes down, if Brisker goes down, like a Clinton Dix, 1-year vet min deal type of guy. You could have found a guy like that. But instead, Elijah Hicks and Quindell Johnson, and they were bad. I mean, they missed some tackles. There were a few where they just like, what are you doing? You're not going to wrap up. You're going to just hit him and just kind of, let them bounce off you and make a play. So the cold is the pass defense, but special mention to Hicks and Johnson and Ryan Poles for what the hell, man. Go out there and get some veterans. I understand it's a rebuild year still in your mind that you don't want to spend too much, but you could have got a 1-year guy. Ryan Poles.
Do we need to have a segment that's just called "What the Hell, Man"?
What the hell, man?
Because that feels like a recurring theme so far. I've got we've covered most of it, so I'll just throw out some fun stuff. Cold bowl porridge to football coaches that wear sweatshirts when it's 90 plus degrees and humid. The heat index in Tampa was 108 at game time. 108. Matt Eberflus and a lot of those coaches on the sidelines are wearing sweatshirts. They are sweating like crazy. What are you doing? Like, I don't understand this trend. We go to camp, these guys are they're wearing sweatshirts. What is this? Is this like high school wrestling? You're trying to cut weight? Like, I don't understand this. It's the dumbest thing. Just put on some sunscreen and wear a short sleeve shirt, wear some sort of Nike wicking, whatever, right? Be comfortable. That cannot be comfortable. Down on the sidelines, just dripping, pouring sweat. And it didn't even have a hat on. You could see his hair just like pasted to his forehead. Like, miserable, dude. That's a terrible look. It is a terrible look. Do not do that. Don't understand football coaches doing that. Cold bowl of porridge cut, probably because they need to cool their body down. I mean, they might like it. Yeah. They might like the cold bowl of porridge. The other one is I don't want to be referee Twitter. That is the most blatant, offensive pass interference push off by Mike
Oh,
Evans that I
Mike
have ever
Evans.
seen
Yeah.
in my life that just didn't get called. I mean, it's not very often when the corner just like falls down because he's pushed. So Mike Evans is a big dude. That's like the
Yeah.
Gronk thing. Like Gronk could never get away with any of that because he was so big and strong that he pushed guys over, and he didn't even look like he was pushing that hard. Evans is big. Like he is a tall, big dude. He pushed off. And then it was a 60-yard. This game was not that out of reach. Like that is a huge play. That's a huge momentum shift. Just a unbelievable blown call by that referee staff in a close game. So they get a cold bull from me as well.
I like it. Yeah, I understand that play when it happened. Obviously, we're Bears fans, so we always looking for the kind of stuff. But yeah, what was it? It made no sense there. That was just like you said, so blatant. Like what are you doing? I know a few years ago they were allowed to the refs, or I'm sorry, the coaches were allowed to challenge interference penalties. I think at some point they stopped that, didn't they? They didn't do that
Just one
anymore.
year was that Sean Payton thing because
Like
they
they
got
tested
hosed.
out. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think it was like a okay, Sean, we'll let them for 1 year, and then like they
Yeah.
never reversed any of them, even when they were obvious. It was like a really
Yeah.
weird thing. Like they let him get his way, and then they sort of just took the rule away.
Terrible, terrible. If you're going to let them challenge stuff, let them challenge everything. That's what I say.
Well, or just do your job and
Or
call obvious things because it's at the point of attack. Like sometimes, like, oh, that was a hold, and it's like, yeah, it's backside. Like, they're not looking there.
no one
Just
sees.
stop.
Yeah,
But if it's point of attack, you have to be able to see that. And again, he then turns around and he runs for I think it was a 60-yard pass play.
yeah,
So it was a huge play in the game
big
and
play.
really annoying. All right, just right. What do you got for the just right bowl?
I had a couple here. I want to make sure we talked about it somewhere, but you kind of mentioned him in your hot DJ Moore. We expect that kind of production. We expect 100 yards a week out of DJ Moore. That's what we expect. We want him targeted more. I mean, 7 is nice, but I want more, out of him. But I'm going to go with the two inside linebackers. They had really good games. They combined for 28 tackles. Tremaine Edmonds, TJ Edwards. We expected them both to be tackling machines. That's why they were signed or brought in to do this. You'd like to see your D line make a few more plays in front of them, so they're not forced to do it all themselves. But they're running around, they're making plays. This is what you expect out of these guys. They're getting paid a lot of money. So I'm going Edmonds and Edwards. Those guys that had a nice game this week. But again, that's what we want out of these guys. We expect Chicago, our linebackers, to make plays, and that's what they're doing.
Yeah, I thought Edwards particularly. I thought played pretty well. Edmonds got washed out of one run that I wasn't very happy. He took a bad angle, and you're that athletic, but you're not Superman. You still
Yeah.
got to follow some rules here, and that sort of thing can happen. I think I end up popping for like an 10 yard run or something like that. But they're good football players, and if you have the defensive line that can keep off of them, they'll clean up a lot of stuff. Again, it's sort of a backwards move, right? Like I think we like to see things built inside out. You start with the trenches, and then you kind of go outwards,
Yeah.
both on the offense and the defensive side. If you can build up that defensive line, you can maybe scrimp and save a little bit with linebackers, but like it helps the linebackers regardless. Bears sort of did the opposite, right? They sort of built with some secondary, and then they signed some linebackers, and then they're trying to just kind of piece together the interior, and they've got a couple young guys they're trying to develop now this year. But they're I don't know, they're kind of pitching inside out. They're working it backwards, but those guys are good football players. Good to see. For me, and this one, people are gonna disagree with it, and that's fine. Mine's Chase Claypool. Uh, Not an efficient day, which is exactly what I expect of him. He caught 3 catches on 8 targets, which is terrible, but like that's actually the scouting report on Chase Claypool is that he's not an efficient pass catcher. But he caught a touchdown and he came out fired up and had some pretty decent blocks. Like he looked like he was motivated. And so he apologized to the team last week for his effort. He got that penalty, right? Like he's being aggressive, but he got a penalty, so he's not playing smart. So I know again, you're gonna make fun of me for saying this. This is pretty much what I expect out of Chase Claypool, is sort of this mercurial figure where he's kind of bouncing up and down. This was overall like he made a couple plays, he made a couple mistakes, he was a little bit inefficient. That's Chase Claypool.
in the spirit of the
In the spirit of
category,
the award.
it's just what we expect out of a guy, and that's true. I mean, that's who Chase Claypool is. I mean, he had a really bad missed block on Justin Fields' touchdown. It didn't matter, but it is what it is. He had a couple nice blocks in the game. He had the penalty. I'm curious on that penalty. Is there a timing thing? A lot of times, maybe he kind of jumped the gun, but maybe the timing was a bit off. Who knows? I'll have to go back and look at that a little deeper. But yeah,
But did you
that's
hear
a
what he
good.
said?
What did he say?
He said that he thought that it was a run play,
Oh, yes, yes, yes,
but they
yes.
just replayed it.
Yeah, I don't know what's
That was
going
that
on.
was the second time around. Anyway, yeah, no, anyway,
He is who we thought he was. This
he's
is the
exactly who we thought he was.
inconsistent. Yeah,
And this coaching staff, that's that's a guy that you're in the right system, in the right coaching, they get the most out of it. To be honest, that is Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh gets the most out of wide receivers. They continue to churn them out. And then when those wide receivers leave, even if they're super talented, sometimes they don't do quite as well. And some of these personalities sort of get unleashed on the rest of the league. Antonio Brown being the prime example, and all of the issues that came out of that, right? And so Pittsburgh's like, oh man, he's a Pittsburgh wide receiver. Yeah, we want that guy. Well, there's no better situation than Pittsburgh for wide receivers. So when they leave, they may not perform quite as well elsewhere. So buyer beware, I guess
yeah.
would be for that. That's the three bowls of porridge. What else you got? Anything else going on? You ready
No,
to
it's
close the book on the Buccaneers game?
yeah. I'm ready to look forward to the Chiefs because this is not going to be a fun week. I mean, it's not as bad as last week having to rehash the Packer game over and over because that lingered. I mean, the beat writers were talking about that game all the way up to Wednesday or Friday's presser, partly because it's the Packers. And there's so much went wrong. So hopefully it's not as bad this week. Hopefully they will leave the Bucks behind. But then you look forward to the Chiefs. You're like, oh man, it's just going to be so much worse. And I mean, the last time they played the Bears, the Chiefs, I mean, that was the revenge game, so to speak, right? Where he was making sure the Bears knew they passed on him. And, so hopefully that's out of his system now. He doesn't have to pay them back. But then you got the whole Nagy situation. Nagy's over there. He's going
Yeah,
against a team that kind of did him dirty in his mind, right? So maybe he's going to want Mahomes to kind of, maybe he's talking up behind the scenes. So this could be a 50 burgers type of game coming up here for the Chiefs.
I got a call from a friend who lives in Kansas City. He's a Chiefs fan. Went to high school with this guy, and he's like, "Hey man, are we getting Nagy'd?" And I was like, "What?" He's like our offense just looks terrible. And I'm thinking, yeah, come on, man. Like, I get it. Like they didn't look very good in the opening week and all this kind of stuff. And he's like, well, I mean, he was just the quarterback coach last year. So now he's the offensive coordinator. I think he's really bad. And I'm like, listen, you don't know the half of it because you can just sit back and enjoy Andy Reid. Like
Yeah,
you don't get to complain about Matt Nagy. We get to complain about Matt Nagy. That's where I'm going with that. But
I'm not sure how many play calls Nagy's making over there, or if he is making play calls, Andy Reid is listening to those, and if he does, he's like, no, 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 do this instead. I
yeah.
mean, I'm sure there's a short leash on Matt Nagy over there in Kansas City, and because that's Andy Reid's show. It always has been.
Right, exactly. So, all right, well, we'll stick around for the YouTube audience and hit some questions up. Looks like we got a couple dozen over there. But if you're listening to the podcast, make sure that you're sticking with us, and we will see what we can make of this Chicago Bears season. We'll see if they bounce back. Maybe not this week against the former champs, but you never know, right? That's why they play the games, and we will watch it because we're contractually obligated to do so. But we will watch it. If you don't want to, and just listen to us next week, and we'll let you know how it went. And until next time, bear down.
What if the Bears pull off the upsets? How quickly will the narratives
I
change?
don't know. What if you win $10 million tomorrow?
Exactly. Yeah.
Which one's more likely, right? Uh, I don't know, man. It's possible. I don't know if I mean, you would have to see a change in the offense, right? The
Yeah,
offense would have to have come out, been very different, um, and make sense. And the defense would have to. I mean, the Chiefs' offense has not put up a lot of points yet. I mean, that is a true
yeah,
statement, right? But the defense would have to get pressure on Mahomes, or they'd have to. I mean, they don't have a turnover yet, right? I mean, it's. I mean, it's they got one
I
sack.
mean, the Lions beat them, and then the Lions lose to the Seahawks at home. So
Yeah,
it's like, okay, what happened there? And then, of course, it was a tough game with Chiefs against the Jags.
Jags pretty good though. I mean, we think they're going to be good.
The only way the Bears pull off the upset, and of course, this is, we talked about it, slim to none chance, is if Justin Field just goes ridiculous.
Right.
If Luke Getsy says, you know what, bootleg, roll out, make a play, it's in your hands, and he starts seeing the field better because he has not seen the field very good. There are a lot of times where you look at the all-23, you're like, why does he not pull the trigger there? Again, I think part of it's coaching, part of it's being coached out of him. Other stuff is just, you know, it is what it is. The wall's a work in progress. As you can see over here, we still got some tweaking to make, but this weekend is the plan. We're going to get it all fixed up. I've been talking about it. We're going to turn it. I'm going to have this wall over here. Got some stuff ready to go up. It's coming. It's coming. It's
I
coming.
love it. I'm so excited. I saw EJ's new
Yeah.
setup,
Nice
right?
set.
Setup's pretty nice. Like not
Yeah.
just the set for like what you're gonna see. Like that's pretty cool. It's like a cool like wood panel type wall that he put up. He was sending I probably got like 20 different photos from him over the
Yeah.
course of weeks as he was putting
That's
it
his
up.
baby there, man. He's
Yeah,
excited.
no, I mean it looks good. And then he's got like a setup so that he can just watch like all the games on Sunday.
Yeah.
He's got like two big TVs and then, then his like recording setup. And it's like, oh, okay. Well, he just surpassed I mean, I still have the cool background, but like he
Yeah.
definitely surpassed my setup. I need to up my game if I want to match that. Long dark winter. I mean, like it's still fall though, right? Like let's at least enjoy the best season that there is. These beautiful temperatures. I had to get out a hoodie the other night.
It's hoodie
That
weather. Yeah.
was great. I love it. Hoodie weather's the best. Um, I think Getsy has a plan. I think it's one of the worst plans I've seen in a
Yeah.
long time because it's like it really kind of went back to this idea that well, this is what I know, and this is what I need to like shape this person into. But why? Like I just keep coming back to why. Like why can't you shape the offense around this guy and then maybe slowly bring in your principles that you're really focused on over time. Even the great quarterbacks that get these new offensive coordinators and they kind of have this like, oh, this fight, Rodgers and LaFleur, right? They were kind of at odds with each other. The
Yeah.
Shanahan when he came in with Matt Ryan, and that first year was really awkward because he didn't like the play action and turning his back to the defense. And then the second year he wins an MVP, right? But these coordinators work with these guys to take advantage of what they do really well. And I think that's what makes a good football coach and what makes a good coordinator that eventually you get a head coaching job. That's not Luke Getsy, man. He's not doing any of that. He's not taking advantage of what Justin Fields does well. He was an efficient intermediate passer last year. Like he
He
was good at
was.
it. And he's not even taking those shots so far. It's silly.
I get a lot of Nagy vibes. The stubbornness is what I'm starting to pick up from Getsy because he's not changing what he wants to do. And I mean, he was brought in from the Matt LaFleur system, which is a Kyle Shanahan style system. We haven't seen it this year. His college background when he was a college play caller, it was with the Joe Moorhead offense, which is a lot of run pass option, a lot of read option stuff. We haven't seen that. So what is Getsy trying to be? Is he trying to just be a straight drop back guy? And but that's not what works right now for this team. So I don't know. It's like I said, I think he has a plan. It's just a really awful plan.
You see this stat that ESPN put out there on the 12-game losing streak. The Bears have given up at least 25 points in
I
all 12
saw
games.
that.
And they put Justin Fields' picture on that. It's like put Eberflus's picture on.
That's the QB wins. They
I
always
mean,
reference that. Yeah.
I mean, what the hell, man? That's my what the hell. Like put the guy that's calling the defense, or constructing the defense or calling the defense, or put a defensive player on there. And Fields didn't even start all those games. Like,
And then speaking of defense, Jacob Infante quote tweeted that thing, talking about how it's Matt Eberflus, obviously a defensive guy. Where is the draft picks gone?
yeah,
Draft picks have been spent on defense for the most part. Big money spent on defense for the
free
most
agency
part.
money.
25 points per game. Oh, that's just terrible.
Yep, yep. Uh, wants to. You kind of talked about it. You kind of
We
touched
talked
on
about
that.
it a little bit. I mean, it's Fields has to go nuclear for Bears to have any chance. He has to just like the hell with this Getsy stuff. I'm doing my own thing, you know. Again, but
It's
man, if
like
it's
the
coached out of
Dolphins
him, it's
game
hard,
last year.
huh?
Like the Dolphins game last year, where like he kind of
Yeah,
kept him in it. It's got to kind of be like that, right?
yeah.
Because yeah, the Chiefs are, again, they're not hitting on all cylinders, so it's probably a little bit more possible than what we're all giving them, just because they haven't really hit it, which is so weird because they're usually the opposite. They usually come in and they're humming, and then they sort of get figured out,
They
and Andy Reid kind
coast.
of
Yeah.
runs out of new stuff by the end of the year. And so, whereas like Belichick, like, they're not always great in September, and then they sort of like piece it all together, they figure out who they are, and then they're peaking at the right time, right? And that was like, I think,
You're frozen again.
probably,
We're
and I
having some
think you
internet
fix that.
issues today.
Yeah, I know. Hey, we're really close to getting like fiber. It's across the street, it's laid in, so
Oh,
I'm hoping we're going to get that soon, and this will
nice.
be an issue of the past. But yeah, sorry about the freeze ups here.
It's okay.
um
When it does freeze, you're always frozen in a nice spot, so it looks.
well, that's good.
It's not these awkward like, So at least that's a good thing.
uh yeah, all right, well, anything else you want to cover?
I think we're good, man. There's 2 games on. I mean, there's already a game going on now,
Yeah, we
the
gotta we gotta get going
Panthers and
here.
stuff. So yeah, let's go watch some Monday Night Football.
And we gotta cheer for the
Watch the
Saints.
Panthers lose.
Yeah, we gotta cheer for the Saints. So
Yeah.
cheer against Eddie Pinheiro. So
Uh,
all right, well, thanks everybody for joining us. Sorry
he just froze again.
it's under these circumstances, but you know
I'll freeze with you. Thanks, everyone. I think we're gonna cut it off because there he is,
am I
froze again. And let's close it out right here.